Hey everyone, Robert Ferringo here once again with your Friday football betting bonanza. With me as always is Raphael Esparza. He's a man who really needs no introduction. But if you are interested, go over to docsports.com or click one of the handy links that we put down below in the description. We're right up there. Take advantage of $60 free that we are offering to you to be used towards any handicapper in any sport for any package that we offer. So, all right, we got that nonsense out of the way, Raphael. We got some big football games going on this weekend. Doesn't really get more important than this, right? The first college football playoffs rankings came out. And now we get a question, Raphael. Who's number one? Is Tennessee number one? Is Georgia number one? Georgia's number one in the AP rankings. Tennessee is number one in the college football playoff rankings. Does any of that really matter on Saturday when they meet up for the biggest game of the weekend?
No, I just think the committee put Tennessee at number one just for a couple days before Georgia gets them in their backyard. Not saying that Georgia's going to rout, but I mean, the number one team was an 8.5 point underdog in this game. So Georgia will pile up. I have them winning. Do I have them covering? We'll talk about that later, but I do have Georgia winning that game. And then, I mean, it will fix itself out. I love me some chaos. I'm hoping Tennessee wins. I would love to see LSU beat Alabama just because that would probably eliminate three crappy SEC teams in the Final Four if that's the case. So give me some chaos. I would like to see chaos on the road.
Was there anything else about those initial college football playoff rankings that came out that really surprised you, or anything motivation-wise that you think will influence any of the teams, players, coaches, fan bases this week? Because let's be honest, like their rankings are ridiculous. I think we both agree with that. It's subjective instead of objectively determining who the best teams in the country are. However, we are dealing with kids ages 18 to 22. You know, it's an emotional game with emotional kids. So did anything jump out at you that might be useful for your handicapping?
No, it got me pissed off seeing LSU number 10, who got blanketed at home by
We'll get to that.
Tennessee. Why are they the 10th rank? I'm sorry. I know people are going to say it, but I would put UCLA above them. I would probably put Kansas State closer to
It's not a,
them. They got blanketed at home by Tennessee. I just doesn't. And then, I mean, the two soft schedules or lollipops that they played, New Mexico and Southern. So it's not like they played a really, really tough non-conference. I was really, really surprised on LSU being a number 10. But there you go. It's just the SEC bias. I have to puke every Saturday or every Tuesday now I see rankings come out.
yeah, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. We'll get to that when we break down that Alabama LSU game. Let's get to the games. All right, the top five games that we have identified for this weekend with a free play at the end from each of us. First game, you just mentioned them. Texas going to Kansas State. Huge Big 12 showdown. Kansas State coming off one of the best performances of the year by anyone, really. They threw the donut at Oklahoma State, a really good Oklahoma State team that had been playing very well. They rolled into Manhattan. They didn't roll out. Okay, what was it? 48-0, 49-0 Kansas State win. So coming off a peak performance, a peak effort in that game, Raphael, why are they underdogs against Texas in this matchup?
I don't know. I'm tired of thinking, oh, Texas is back. Texas is back. Just the same thing how we have to hear Nebraska's back. Miami's back. This is not 1990, people. Texas, Nebraska, and Florida State or Miami are not back. Get those
They may
words out
never
of
be
your
back.
mouth. Yeah, but they may never be back. So I agree. Big high ups on Kansas State. Like I said, 48-0. 2 weeks ago, in the beginning of October, they held Iowa State to only 9 points. So it's not like that was just a fluke. I mean, I know they lost to TCU by double digits, but it was a much closer game than what the score's telling us when they lost by 10. I'm really high in this K-State. If they can establish the run early, they're a tough out. Again, as the Cowboys last week, I like K-State on this one. I think they put the blanket on.
Okay, Texas has won 5 in a row in this series, some of them via blowout. They've seemed to have the Wildcats number. Does that factor into your decision making at all?
It does, but the play about Texas when they lost to Oklahoma State, and I know they're coming off a bye week, they're coming off fresh, but I'm just not sold on how they play on the road. If this was in Longhorn State, then I might look at it as something different. But they lost to Oklahoma State, they lost to Texas Tech on the road in overtime. I know that was in overtime, but Texas Tech was able to go up and down the field on them pretty easily. So I just don't like their road play.
How about the letdown factor? Do you worry that a team like Kansas State, who played almost a perfect game last week in that just demolition of Oklahoma State, do you worry about them kind of coming back to earth?
It does. That's why I didn't release it as one of my plays because I let down, and then Texas coming off a bye week. So that's kind of scared me on that. I think K State does win this game. I think it's going to be a closer game than maybe the numbers are telling us or the bettors are telling us. But that kind of did scare me away. If Texas wasn't coming off that bye week, I would throw out the letdown game because I just think they're coming in red hot. And how motivated is your offense knowing that your defense can blanket a team and give you the ball because they had some bad turnovers, Oklahoma State. So I think that's going to be a big, impressive win. And again, being a home underdog in this game.
Yeah, don't tell Phil Steele that Texas isn't back because like every year he tries to predict that this is the year that they're coming back to national prominence. Texas is 3-9 against the spread in their last 12 conference games. All the trends point to Kansas State. They are 11-4 against the spread in their last 15 games against Texas. The home team is 8-2 against the spread the last 10 times that these two teams have gotten together. And Kansas State's 6-1 against the spread at home against the Longhorns. Manhattan, it really is one of the toughest venues in college football, one of the most underrated home field advantages in college football. Kansas State has it. All right, we're going to stay in the Big 12. Texas Tech and TCU. TCU, top 10 team, knocking on the door. Unfortunately, might be the Big 12's only hope for the college football playoff, which is ridiculous in my estimation. They have more than proven that they can hang with anything that the SEC or ACC or Big Ten, whatever, that those top tier leagues have. But TCU is it. All right. They're undefeated. The number on this game is dropping now. Okay, the public's on TCU. Everything's pointing towards TCU. They're the top 10 team. Raphael, explain to me how this number opened at 10 and is coming down to 8.5 and maybe lower by kickoff.
Well, first of all, raise your hand if you had Texas Tech late last week as your top play. So what do you think is going to happen this week? Texas Tech will probably win by 20 and give me the double bird, and down goes TCU, and down goes the Big 12 to the big dance in the playoff. That's probably going to happen to me because that's how my luck usually goes. Yeah, I'm a little bit shocked on how big this number was. I mean, these two teams play all the time. They know each other. It's not like TCU has blown people out of the water. They've had the hard fought their way. And look at when they won against Oklahoma State. I don't know how many overtimes it was, but it was only a 3-point win. Crucial game. They barely beat Kansas on the road. Barely beat West Virginia. I know they won by double digits, but that score doesn't really.
Can we take a minute and just let me lament one of the worst beats of the season, one of the worst beats of the college football season last week? I had West Virginia at home. They're covering the number. 26 seconds left on 4th and 1. TCU trying to salt the game. They draw West Virginia off sides, right? They have won the game. All Max Duggan has to do is take a knee, take the penalty. You're a winner. Instead, he throws it up for grabs in the end zone. They could have been intercepted right there. Well, I guess it wouldn't matter because of the penalty. But anyway, caught for a touchdown, a meaningless touchdown for TCU. Garbage beat for anybody that had West Virginia and anybody that had TCU last week. It was a terrible play. So I'm going back to Texas Tech just on the strength of that, just on the strength of TCU when it, like you kind of touched on, won some games that they shouldn't have and definitely covered last week when they shouldn't have. So I don't see that continuing, but I'm sorry, go on.
The only thing that if you're Texas Tech, I don't know if you can go this is hard to say. I don't know how you would be able to go toe to toe with TCU's offense because Texas Tech could always put up some big points. But TCU's offense is lightning fast. They put up points quickly. They've scored over 38 plus at home this year as Oklahoma because I just think TCU just scored again on Oklahoma just now as we're talking. So if you're Texas Tech, you don't want a shootout. And I know Texas Tech, they love shootout games. That's how they win a lot of their games. But if there's a shootout in this one, You're on the road. You struggled on the road this one. I think the Frogs nipped this one really, really close. I don't like the number. I think if TCU does win, I think it's going to be a touchdown or less. So, but again, I had Texas Tech last week. I'm not pulling the trigger on this one because I can guarantee you Texas Tech wins outright, and they give me the double bird as they're walking off the field as a road victory.
Yeah, I will take the point. So one thing that does worry me is what you said, is that TCU at home, they do show another level. They have another gear at home, and they're one of those teams down the stretch here that's going to be feeling that noose tightening. They have to be perfect. Okay, they can't lose a game and still go to the playoffs. They're knocking on the door, but they have a very thin margin for error. I think that that's going to hurt them on the road, where teams can kind of tighten up, stiffen up a little bit, especially dressing up as a big favorite. But at home, I worry about them getting a little bit of confidence and really blasting Texas Tech. But Texas Tech's a really good team. They've outgained 6 of their last 7 opponents. That's one of those stats. Point differential and yardage differential. Those are 2 very consequential stats that I like to look at. And Texas Tech, they might be a little bit better than their record suggests that they are. Factor in the reverse line movement. The public and everything is on TCU, and that number starts coming down. That's an indicator. So that's why Texas Tech is a play for me. So, all right, we have to do it, Raphael. I don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. But let's dive into the SEC. And how about this? How about the fact that the Alabama LSU game is getting second billing this weekend? Tennessee, Georgia is the big one, so we'll save that one. Let's talk a little bit Alabama LSU.
Yeah, this one's gonna be interesting. First of all, it's always hard to go to Tiger Stadium at nighttime and pull off and steal a road victory. That's what's probably lean me towards LSU in this one, just because this Alabama team is not the same Alabama team we've seen in the past. Their defense has a lot of holes. Look what Tennessee did to them. They were all gassed out in the second half of what Tennessee did. And if you're LSU, their offense moves quickly. They have a mobile quarterback, so if they can score quickly in the second half, I think that Bama Tiger defense could be gassed out again. But at the same time, you're giving Nick Saban 2 weeks to prepare to go back to Tiger Stadium and take your Alabama Crimson Tide when no one's pretty much giving you a chance to maybe climb up to the top 4 and in some certain. I still like the plus points on this one. I like the way LSU's playing. I'm going to take the plus points, but I think Nick Saban does squeaks one out because, again, 2-week preparation for LSU. I like Bama, but give me the plus points at LSU. But we could see some bad weather in this game, or at least the field being really bad, because they're expecting some heavy storms all Saturday morning and the afternoon.
Who does that give the edge to in your estimation?
I think that gives the edge to Alabama, which love to run the ball. I mean, LSU will run the ball, but it's a mobile quarterback. You have to look at the dual threat of him faking the run and then throwing, where Alabama just wants to pound the rock.
Yeah, I released Alabama, but the closer we get to game day, the more I don't like that play. They already should have 2 losses. They shouldn't even be in the discussion for the college football playoffs. But it's just muscle memory not to write Nick Saban out. However, I bet against them because, again, we've talked about it several times right here in this very space about what a joke the SEC is and really what a joke the rankings are, okay? This is a list of the teams in the SEC that have been ranked in the top 12, all right? I said it a few weeks ago. The SEC has 14 of the 10 best teams in the country, okay? They have had Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Texas A&M, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Florida. They have had 10 teams ranked in the top 12 at some point in this season. Half of those teams aren't even above 500 in their conference right now. Like it is just a farce when it comes to the SEC and the college football rankings right now. So that right there is why I bet against LSU this week, because they're not nearly as good as their rankings suggest. And I'm going to go ahead and fade away against that, just like I've done with teams like Ole Miss and Arkansas and Texas A&M. Those teams get in the top 10 that don't deserve to be there. I have instantly been betting against them, and to good effect. So, all right, the big game, the top game, Tennessee at Georgia. I don't feel like it needs a ton of introduction. So, Raphael, what are you looking at in this matchup?
Again, it's going to be in your backyard. Some weather could be effective in this one. I think that would help Georgia if it is, but at the same time, this Tennessee offense is fun to watch. If it's a high scoring game, then I think Georgia could be an upset alert, and we'll be watching on ESPN the ticker down there where it says upset alert, Tennessee scores again, or whatever. If it's a low scoring, if you're Georgia, you need a 24-10 type of game to try to control the tempo. If it's a high scoring game, then I just think it's Tennessee can steal a victory or keep this game very, very close. I have Tennessee covering the number, but Georgia winning by 6 or less. So I like Georgia to win, move up to number one spots. But the ATS number gives Tennessee the cash.
I actually disagree with you there. I think if you're betting this game, and I can see the pros and cons for both sides, but I feel like if you bet this game, you have to bet the team that you think is going to win. If you think Tennessee is going to win, if you just think that they are the better team, if you look at the amount of talent that Georgia lost from last year's team and say, okay, they're not as good as they were last year. And over the last month, the way that they've played, they don't look nearly as good or as dominant as they were last year. If you think Tennessee is the better team, you take the points and you take Tennessee. But if you like Georgia, if you think Georgia wins this game, I don't think that you play that, you play that game where, well, they'll win, but they won't cover type of thing. Because if you look back at what Georgia has done under Kirby Smart, there haven't been a lot of close wins. When they beat teams, they usually pummel them into the ground. They have won 5 straight in this matchup. And it all comes down to, can Tennessee's run defense hold off Georgia's rushing attack? Because teams get scared into trying to throw the ball against Tennessee, even if they get down a couple touchdowns. If you just keep running the ball against them, you go back to the Florida game. That Florida game, I think it was 38-33. It wasn't that close of a game. It never should have been that close of a game. Tennessee got up big early in that game, but Florida just kept moving the ball, running the ball. And they had an opportunity late in that game to kind of steal one. I feel like that's exactly what Georgia needs to do, and that's what Georgia will do, is pound the ball, control the clock, but not in a way that generates a low-scoring game. I actually like the over in this game because I think Georgia's going to get 30-plus. I think they're going to threaten 40 in this game without a problem. One thing to point out about Tennessee, okay, if you go back over the last 15 years, the team that wins the national championship in college football covers the spread on average over 75% of the time. Okay, the teams that win the national championship, they usually end up going like 10-3 against the spread, 10-4 against the spread, 11-3 against the spread. Tennessee is starting to fit that profile. They're 7-1 against the number this year. They win this game, they are in the driver's seat to go to the national championship game. And if you haven't been doing it already, I almost feel like they're going to be a blind bet down the stretch. Any issue with any of that, Raphael?
No, I agree. I mean, they've been covering machines all season long. So I agree if you like Tennessee, bet Tennessee. But at the same time, I still think it's going to be a lot closer game. I know you said Georgia blows out teams when they won, but they didn't cover against Florida. They didn't cover against Mizzou. So it's not like they were dominant against the spread. Again, if you're Tennessee, you need 40 plus to win this game. I think if you're Georgia, pound the rock, control the clock. That's why I think a 24-10, something around that. I mean, that's just a low-scoring game, but something around that. I think that's what Georgia probably wants, to keep that Tennessee offense on the sidelines playing Candy Crush.
All right, so I'm kind of did this on purpose. The Alabama, LSU, and Tennessee, Georgia games are much more entertaining, much more fun to talk about. They're going to be more fun to watch. But I saved this wet fart of a game for last because I know a lot of very smart, very sharp people that are on this game big. Okay, Clemson going to Notre Dame, the great hope for the ACC, Clemson. This has been a pretty good rivalry actually over the last 7 or 8 years. They have had some memorable games between these two teams. Clemson, people keep wanting to forget about them, I feel like, but all they do is win, right? Like after their slow start last year, all they've done is win games. They almost lose to Syracuse, but they don't. They're still hanging around in that top 4 or 5, right in position for the playoffs. I mean, it's a small number on the road at Notre Dame, and Clemson is 20-8 against the spread in their last 28 road games. I mean, is it crazy to love Clemson this week, or is Notre Dame just a very inviting underdog to you?
I don't like Notre Dame in this spot. They've been really bad at home. I mean, they have no home field advantage. It's like watching the Chargers or the Rams play at home in the NFL, where the visiting team has more jerseys or colors on it. We saw it with the 49ers and the Rams last week, where it was a 49er crowd in the Rams' backyard. They beat UNLV, but me and you can find guys that have UNLV. But losing to Stanford, I thought was a
Syracuse.
bad.
Don't disrespect Syracuse. Don't sully their good name by ignoring that big win for Notre Dame.
Okay, that was a big win, but at the same time, we butchered Syracuse of their schedule before that game, playing Wagner and stuff like that. So, they lost to Stanford.
But how much stock do you put into that type of thing? It can be a very dangerous game to play in college football. You know, two teams played a similar opponent, trying to look at how they played against that opponent. Okay, Clemson was at home against Syracuse, and they should have lost that game. They were lucky to win that game. All right, Notre Dame goes on the road, and that game was never close. They dominated the Orange. Do you factor that into your handicapping, or do you just say, you know, two different games, two different times? In college football, teams are so erratic from week to week. How much do you use something like that in your handicapping, the common opponent theory?
I don't really, because I look at the Stanford loss. I look at how if it wasn't for that second quarter against BYU in Vegas, where they had a sack in the end zone, they put 15 points in the second half. That was pretty much the tempo of the game, because BYU outscored Notre Dame in the second half of that game, 28-20. Notre Dame doesn't cover, and then they lose to Marshall, which I don't think Matthew McConaughey was a head coach of that game. So why did you lose to Marshall at home? I just don't like the way they've been playing at home. They should have another loss. I thought BYU could have probably won that game, especially how they adjusted and was able to move the ball on Notre Dame's defense in the second half. So again, I like Clemson. We don't play games on paper, but if you do look at paper, Clemson's got the better athletes, the better quarterback in this one, and I think their defense is a slight better than Notre Dame's defense.
Do they have the better quarterback though? Because right now, I don't know if Clemson knows who its quarterback is. They're like the New England Patriots of college football right now, right?
Whoever's hot in the first quarter is the quarterback for the whole game for Clemson.
Yes, that always works. All right, Raphael, we can't let you out of here without giving the people something for free. So hook them up with a free pick.
I'm going to the same backyard where you just tortured Notre Dame. I do not want touchdown Jesus in this game. Don't give me that. If this game was on Sunday, maybe. But give me Clemson on the road, laying, I hate to say a soft 3.5, even though that half a hook is on there. But I have Clemson winning by a touchdown. Again, I'm not sold on Notre Dame's losses. Stanford should have lost to BYU. Should have lost to Cal. They lose to Marshall. Again, we are Marshall. They lose to Marshall at home. Some of these games were. So I'm not sold on Notre Dame. Give me Clemson.
Invoking religion. You were just begging to be smoted. Okay, let me put that out there. All right, my free pick, I already gave it away, so I'm going to go back to it. A little bit of a cheat here is I like Texas Tech. Give me Texas Tech. Give me the points. Teams like TCU that are undefeated, that probably shouldn't be. They've been kind of riding the rails for the last few weeks, as we touched on, winning close game after close game after close game. That's all well and good, but I'm not laying more than a touchdown with a team with that type of pressure on it. Like I said, Texas Tech kind of sneaky good statistically. I think that they could hold up in this game, and especially if Texas Tech can have some success early in this game, take the crowd out of it a little bit, then they start sowing those seeds of doubt. For TCU, I feel like over this next month, it's going to be more mental than it is physical. We've seen what they can do. They have speed on both sides of the ball, one of the best offenses in the country. It's going to be, is this unit mentally tough enough to run the table and position itself for the college football playoffs? I don't know that they are. Mix in the reverse line movement that we are seeing in this game with all of the public money coming in on TCU and that line continuing to drop. That just sets off alarm bells for me as a veteran handicapper. So give me Texas Tech. All right, he is Raphael Esparza. I am Robert Ferringo. We are Doc Sports. Until next time, carpe diem and good luck.